Welcome to Evolved Radio, where we explore the evolution of business and technology. My guest today is Lachlan Turner with Arkinfosec. Lachlan is a cybersecurity expert who has worked for Australia Defence Signals Directorate and now runs his own consulting practice focusing on common criteria certification. We chat about the evolution of cybersecurity, how has it come to be such a common thing in our day-to-day lives, what are the threats, and how can people and businesses protect themselves. I apologize in advance as I had a small issue with echo in my audio. I've tried to minimize it as best I can so it doesn't distract from the conversation. Appreciate your interest today and I hope you enjoy the discussion. So here we go. Welcome, Lachlan. You're with Arkinfosec and you founded a security company. You want to tell us a bit about the background, your history, and how you started Arkinfosec?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Todd, thanks for having me. Hopefully I can shed some insights into cybersecurity. But Arkinfosec, I started Arkinfosec really to service a fairly niche market, which is IT security evaluation and certification. So we essentially make sure that security products do what they're supposed to do, and we do that within an internationally agreed framework, which is called common criteria. So we service a very niche market, but even that being the case, we have to keep abreast of the latest cybersecurity developments. So our typical clients are the IT security product vendors themselves, the Oracles and the McAfees and Intels of the world, and also other cybersecurity labs we provide services to. I've been in the field for about 14 years.
Okay, great. Common criteria is pretty specific, very high-level cybersecurity work. And how did you move to such a high level of interaction in that business? What was the path that sort of led you down the security route in business?
Yeah, well, straight out of university, I went to work for the Australian Department of Defence. In what was then called the Defence Signals Directorate, which is now the Australian Signals Directorate, and that's essentially Australia's NSA. And through that, I was introduced into the common criteria world, and I actually became one of the principal certifiers there for ASD, and so I kind of got an inside track on the certification, on how it works. And so from there, I went and worked for a startup called StratSec in Australia, which serviced common criteria clients, but also federal government clients in cybersecurity areas. So I kind of got a consulting experience and background there with StratSec in the startup scene, and then moving out to Canada in 2008, and I started working for Common Criteria Labs, and then from there, I became an independent consultant. And,
very cool.
Yeah.
So cybersecurity is obviously a hot topic for a lot of people. Gets a lot of pop culture awareness with the revelations from WikiLeaks and Snowden, and definitely brought a lot more of a public awareness around security. Obviously, it's security around computers and cyber systems and the internet have always been present. Why do you think it is such a hot topic lately? Why is there an interest now in the public mind that wasn't there before?
Yeah, definitely the media attention, and the high-profile hacks that are starting to come out now, the Target hacks and Sony, Home Depot, but really it's all I think because our lives are now more increasingly online, and business is online. We're so interconnected. It's just a reflection of our lives and how business has evolved, and the criminal element has basically followed the trend. It's bigger rewards, less risk for those guys to go about hacking. Organized crime, they love it, and because of that, we see these high-profile things. People are becoming more aware that so much of my life is online. If this information was compromised, if my Facebook gets hacked, if my Gmail gets hacked, it's a big deal. So yeah, I think it's just part and parcel of life as we know it now.
Yeah, you mentioned the mafia connection. That's something that I often hear as a driver for that business. Is there a lot of truth to that? That a lot of the hacks come out of a lot of former Soviet mafia connections, and they're just seeing this as a business opportunity?
Yeah, like I'm not sure of the specific, you know, whether it's mafia in Russia or whatever, but definitely organized crime.
Right.
You know, if you look at the material coming out, Verizon put out a breach report every year, and if you go through that, yeah, definitely you see organized crime is a large factor in hacking because it's big business. They make a lot of money out of it. And followed also by state actors, you know, so cyber intelligence type activities, which Edward Snowden kind of lifted the lid on that one as well.
Yep. I've heard estimates that the hacking industry and cybersecurity breaches and the revenue generated from that is estimated to approach $20 billion. Is that
Yeah,
similar to
right.
what you've heard?
Yeah, I'd have to check my latest reading of the report, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's up in that realm. And a lot of times too, it's hard to quantify, so that kind of can muddy the water a little bit in terms of you know, we don't really have a good handle on how serious a problem it is because a lot of it's yeah, you kind of hear numbers thrown, but some of the research indicates that we haven't really quantified it very well, but we know it's a big issue.
Yeah, and is that I would imagine that's because businesses are often shy to suggest that they have been victim of a hack attack or that they've lost data because they don't want the public attention that would then draw. Is that often the case?
Yeah, that's right, and not only that, but oftentimes businesses don't know they've been hacked, and you know, generally the way they find out is a customer or a partner or a policing agency, you know, FBI or RCMP, gets in touch with them and says, "Hey, we've noticed some of our data has been leaked online, or this and that," and that's how they find out. Generally, it's not through their own security kind of awareness. It's them being notified by others.
Yeah, I definitely saw that. I've managed a security practice in the past, and one of the groups focused on SIAM and traffic monitoring. We were often very shocked to be able to show the level of activity that happened and data packets being sent overseas to places that they really shouldn't have been, and
Yeah.
the how long those infections or those that malware had been there was kind of anyone's guess. It was often very eye opening for people to realize that this is not something that they're defending against. It's that they're completely oblivious to the fact that it's already there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's a good question for a business to ask: is how would I know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Until the RCMP or the FBI shows up, I guess you probably wouldn't, unless you're consulting with some folks that might be able to expose the under the covers for you in that, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. So is this somehow more important than it was before? Is it that the attacks are becoming more sophisticated, that they're more prevalent? Is there because there's a market draw for this? Is that increasing the number of attacks, or is this just something that we've all of a sudden become more aware of?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both of those things. The risks have grown because of our move towards the cloud and online and interconnectedness. The stakes are higher. Businesses rely on their online presence for pretty much every aspect of business, finance, HR, management, operations, you name it. The stakes are higher. Awareness is now higher because you have this high profile media attention. Executives are losing their jobs. Like you look at Target, the CEO resigned after I think it was a point of sale hack which the attackers were able to infiltrate via a service provider for their, I think it was their HVAC, heating and air conditioning service provider, and CEO lost his job. So yeah, it's more important because the stakes are higher, I think. And but absolutely, it's always been, ever since there's been computers, there's been hackers, but now it's become big business. It's more than just worrying about our defaced website. There's some serious impacts.
And that's sort of what I found in my travels, as well as what I suggest to people as I chat with them about security, is that in the old days it was about notoriety, and your icons would start dancing and letters appear on the screen with the person that hacked you, and it was about sort of getting that visibility and almost like a ha-ha. Whereas now what we touched on is those infections, you never know they're there. And it's better that they lie dormant and quiet so that they can do their thing. And that sort of obviously increases the risk, because if it is in your face and you got the dancing hack message on your website, you know that it's happened. But to the previous point, if you don't, then it's doing all kinds of stuff that you wouldn't know about.
Yeah, we've moved well beyond the old days.
Yeah.
For sure.
You touched on some of the high visibility attacks like Sony and Target. That's generally the place that people think that are going to be the victims of hack attacks, the big mega corporations. But I don't think a lot of people know that most cybersecurity risk and attacks actually are leveled at small to medium business. Is that the case? Yeah,
right. Yeah, essentially, if you have an online presence, if you connect to the internet, you can be a target. It's not, it's not restricted to big business. It's individuals, it's small business, medium business. These guys are opportunists, and they'll take whatever they can get, whether it's whether they get a foothold in your system to launch attacks on others, or to perform some exfiltration of your information. If you're a target of opportunity, then you will be targeted most likely.
Yeah.
So it's not restricted.
That touches on a great point. What a lot of people don't often realize is that information exfiltration, so grabbing credit card data or grabbing intellectual property, that's the sort of the stuff that is usually reserved for the concerns of the big corporations, financial risk and intellectual property risk. But a lot of people don't realize, that the hackers need to create what are zombie armies of these machines. And small to medium businesses are great attack surfaces for creating these machines that will do their bidding, right? Is that sort of why the small to medium business, most of these operators would think, I don't really have a lot. Why would these guys focus on me? Is that more that they're using those places as the resources for them to conduct attacks on larger entities? Is that the interest on the small to medium business?
Well, I think it's more just targets of opportunity. So wherever they can find vulnerable systems, then they'll try to get a foothold and own those systems. If they find something interesting, and if they can extract some value out of that, they're in it for the money. They're business guys. They just deal in in illegal business. One thing to note too is if a small or medium business is impacted by a hack, it can often, the repercussions for a small or medium business are often larger than they would be for a large enterprise. Just because small and medium businesses aren't so resilient to, say for example, a cash flow shock because of a bank account drain or something along those lines. Whereas big businesses like Target, they'd lost millions of dollars from the hack. The CEO resigned, but at the end of the day, their bottom line, it was like an accounting rounding error. Like they it didn't really impact them financially all that much. Same with Sony. So these big corporations, they can take the hits, but it's the smaller businesses where I think a hack has a potential to really disrupt business more so than a large enterprise.
That's a great point. Yeah, the ones that I've seen a lot of and growing in frequency is a crypto wall, and where the virus gets in and encrypts a ton of data, and if sort of a sub portion of a large megacorp, if they get their data encrypted in a branch office, it's a lot less of a impact to the larger entity versus a one-man shop or a 10-person organization that their drive gets encrypted and they lose absolutely everything unless they're willing to pay that ransom.
Yeah, and a lot of times that's what ends up happening. You just pay the ransom. Hopefully you have a good backup strategy, and that mitigates that. But yeah, I mean, and also too, small and medium businesses, they hold a lot of what we call PII, or personally identified information. Like you think about lawyers or accountants or doctors, there's especially lawyers and accountants. That's a treasure trove of personal information that is valuable to criminals because it allows identity theft, which is big business. It enables the establishment of false identities to take out loans and get credit cards and all sorts of things. So
right,
if you take a look at your business and you ask yourself what information am I holding, and would this be valuable to a criminal, then that helps you understand maybe some of the level of risk that you face.
Right. So it touches on an interesting point. You said that they're opportunists and largely they're business operators. The cybersecurity is just their business. Kind of lends itself to a story that I heard that some of the groups that are operating the receiving end for the crypto wall attacks actually have help desks, so that people can connect with the hackers that have hacked them in order to walk them through the instructions of how to go get bitcoins and pay the ransom. It's kind of really a counterintuitive thing to happen, that they're providing us a level of service that you would think of as a customer, not as the victim of crime.
Yeah. I mean, they're sophisticated operations, absolutely. They're a business just like any other. And one thing that really complicates any kind of legal ramifications for them is because it's all cross-border, it's all cross-jurisdictional. It's very hard to prosecute cyber criminals, it's law enforcement is only really starting to catch up in terms of legislation, those sorts of things, and how to deal with these issues, cross-border issues.
That's interesting. I hadn't considered that as well. Do you think that will sort of lend itself to some type of coordination or cooperation amongst the global police forces for cyber crime, that it would be more of a global approach and a more integrated approach amongst those parties?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's happening now. There's there's definitely efforts to share much more information, because otherwise these actors can operate with impunity. So I mean, I'm not too close to the law enforcement industry, but from what I read in the industry materials and news articles, you'll often see cooperation between different agencies and different countries in order to apprehend high profile actors, but they're really only, it's a drop in the ocean,
right,
compared to what's actually happening.
So let's talk about kind of what some of these attacks look like. There's obviously the more sophisticated examples, take a lot of planning, a lot of high-level execution. What are some accessible examples of those more sophisticated attacks?
Yep. So each attack, whether it's simple or complex, follows a fairly set number of phases, and those are reconnaissance. So that's you know, reconnaissance can be as complicated or as simple as sending out mass emails, which we'll talk about, phishing, or focused, dedicated reconnaissance on a business to find out individuals and systems in place, and those, it can be really targeted or it can be spread. But once the recon phase is over, then there's some kind of delivery of what you would call like a cyber weapon or an exploit, or leveraging a vulnerability. But there's some kind of delivery mechanism to get the exploit, if you like, to the target. So whether that's sending an email, dropping a USB in a conference pack or in a car park or something like that, whether it's from visiting a website, there's some kind of delivery mechanism to drop an exploit onto the target system. Once the exploit then executes, usually there's like a phone home, or in the industry you call it command and control. Basically, you backdoor the system and you provide some kind of mechanism to phone home, and then at that point, it'll either just do what it's going to do, start sending information back, or that will then lead to more exploits being loaded to the system, and so the attackers can gain deeper access into the organization or the system. But an example of a simple attack would be phishing emails, which we've probably all seen examples of. I got one in my junk mail today. Click here to buy watches. So clicking on that link would likely take me to a place that sold watches, but in the background it may also take me to a malicious website that would download some malicious code, which would be the exploit part, and from that point on, it follows the standard progression. So phishing is very common. Another one you'll see is scanned image attached. So PDF files, Word documents, they can all contain malicious code. So the message there is don't open attachments, unsolicited email attachments or links, because they're likely poisoned. To get to the complicated side of things, phishing can be used at the highest levels, like to infiltrate, I think, the Iranian nuclear facility. The exploit was actually delivered via USB. But other instances have been basically an email will come, looks like it's from a co-worker, looks completely legitimate. The attackers know the industry, they know the organization, they know people's emails, and they'll craft an email that looks completely legitimate, but has a little secret payload in there. And once you open, that spreadsheet or whatever that may look legitimate, that's when the code gets embedded into, and so that's very sophisticated attack, but using the same kind of that phishing mechanism.
Yeah, ultimately, is a bit of an arms race between the good guys and the bad guys. The bad guys just keep on upping the ante on that with the level of sophistication, even on the low end, right? Exactly,
and generally, it attacks that are most successful usually rely on the human element. The trust factor. We're naturally trusting, generally, and if the attacker can convince the user at the end of the computer to click something, to open something, then that's where they get the foothold, and that circumvents a lot of controls that are in place to prevent that. Is if you convince a user to hand over their password, type in a password somewhere or something like that.
Yeah, so that's the social engineering piece that you hear a lot about.
Yeah.
This is often the weakest link. You can build all the secure systems that you want, but if you call someone and convince them that you're somebody that needs their password in order to
Yep.
to do something for them, like even to protect them against an attack, saying, we've detected something wrong with your system, I need your password to log into your machine and check something.
Yep.
A lot of people will willingly give that.
And that's common. Yeah, that's very common. It's just to target the user.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of effort in mature security focused organizations. A lot of effort is put on to awareness and securing the user, as opposed to just technical controls.
Great. So that's a great segue as well. We wanted to talk a bit about this is an issue and everyone sees it and is aware of it. What are the best practices that people can use to protect themselves? Obviously, education of the user community is one. What are some of the other pieces that the average person should have in place to keep themselves safe?
Yeah. So I guess there's the basics that probably everyone is familiar with. You have your firewall and your antivirus. Those things, like we've moved way beyond that in terms of security controls, but to have those enabled is like a baseline thing. You should still have that. So, and there's generally free. So for Mac, you could download Sophos antivirus, and that's a great free antivirus solution. Microsoft uses there's Microsoft Security Essentials, and all you have to do is enable those things that are generally already present on your system. We talked a little bit about ransomware or crypto wall, so it's a good idea to have backups. Good IT practices are also good security practices. So have a backup solution. Even if you're a home user, stick a USB drive on and set Time Machine or Windows backup. And if you're going to get hit with one of these things. Another one is enabling two-factor authentication whenever possible. So two-factor authentication is where you don't just rely on a password, but you rely on some other factor. So whether it be an SMS code that's sent to your phone, an app that's on your phone that gives you a number, or a separate dongle. So for Google, they have an app, and you can just enable that for your Google apps. Gmail, Facebook, I believe, has a two-factor capability. So, yeah, whenever possible, move to two-factor, because passwords are essentially dead. We have a good understanding of what passwords people select. We have dictionaries that we can run brute force attacks against people's passwords and crack them fairly easily. So.
Yeah, people are generally terrible with passwords anyway. You see those lists that come out every year, the top hacked passwords, and it's usually 1234 4321. Their birthday, their last name, whatever it is, right?
Yeah, and we're creatures of habit, and it's hard because how many websites and accounts do you have that need a password? Like, for some people it'd be up to 100. So. It's understandable, and that's why moving to two-factor kind of alleviates to some degree. Even if your password gets discovered, the second factor is going to protect you. So yeah, it's always a good
system that I like is LastPass. So you remember a single password for your vault, and it creates the rest of the passwords for you, and that you don't have to remember them. In a lot of systems, it places those passwords in for you, so you don't have to remember them, which is the best password is the one you don't know.
Exactly. So yeah, LastPass, I use LastPass, absolutely. And it creates very strong passwords and remembers them for you. So, and one other thing that people should always be doing is applying those updates and patches to their systems, to their phone. A lot of times, these high-profile hacks and that, generally the attackers are leveraging a known vulnerability where there's a patch available, but the patches weren't applied. So, if you're a big business, you should be looking at deploying automated measures, patch management solutions, and if you're just a small shop, then when it prompts you to apply a patch, just click install straight away, because the attacks come out pretty quickly.
Yeah, people get quite frustrated with the sort of the number of times they need to install patches and reboot, and they often just keep saying, next time, next time, next time. It is
Exactly.
really important. You need to say install and go grab a coffee. It's important
Yeah.
enough that you need to let it take the time to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So more advanced, but for businesses, where I used to work, ASD, the Defense Signals Directorate, they recommend, and basically their top mitigation strategy to and advice to their federal agencies, the number one control they think would have stopped most attacks that occurred against federal agencies was application whitelisting. So that's where essentially you have a solution that only allows you to run applications that you've indicated are safe to run.
Right.
And big corporations, there's solutions to allow users to, request an exception and things like that. There's good automated solutions to deploy, basically just to prevent malicious code from ever running, and that's application whitelisting. And then followed closely behind that is limiting admin privileges. It's not such a big deal if you're a single user. One thing you can do, Mac does this automatically, but if you're a Windows user, you can create one account for your admin and one account that doesn't have admin privileges, and just use your non-admin account, and it'll automatically ask you to enter a password if you're going to do something that requires admin privileges. Mm-hmm. Mac does that. It's been doing that for years, and that's a good practice for big business. Effort there is reducing admin privileges to the minimal set of people who need them, and those that have them, minimizing their privileges to only the systems they really need access to and the privileges that they really need access.
Right. Very good. So what does the future look like for cybersecurity? There's the pace has not stopped about everything being connected. There's a lot of chatter in the industry around what it means for the Internet of Things. Once your refrigerator, and certainly we've seen this with Nest, your thermostat and your furnace, yep, and your water pipes and your watch, and all these things are now connected to the internet. So there's a much greater attack surface. And what is that going to be sort of this ever-present and growing threat that everything that we own that is connected to the internet is somehow an attack vector?
Yeah, well, it's certainly a present threat. Whether we'll get to a point where where there's solutions to, fundamental solutions to some of the security questions remains open. But for now and for the immediate future, things, not to be a doomsday sayer, but things will get worse before they get better. You'll see more high-profile hacks. You'll probably start to see compromises or hacks that result in physical consequences, power outages, maybe environmental disasters based on chemical plant hacks or gas line control, which I think has already happened. There's been a hack on gas line which resulted in an explosion.
That was
cars,
in Ukraine, right?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah. Cars are connected now, so I think what you'll see is physical consequences, possibly even deaths, related to some kind of cyber attack or hack. And as that starts to happen and the consequences really start to become apparent, I think what we'll see is we'll start to see more regulation and more standardization and more effort into security. Much like say, for example, the building industry now, we know how to build a house pretty well, or we know how to build a bridge. But when they first started building bridges, they didn't have all the engineering know-how that they do now. So at the moment, software development and IT product development's pretty Wild West. You just go out there and you just start slapping it together, and if it starts working, then it's good. As far as security, what we need to be doing is is baking it in from the start, and we need, and there's work being done. Like we need to have some better solutions for developers to develop secure. And I think that's where the industry will head. Is more. It'll become more stabilized, and we'll understand more about how to build secure systems. But it'll be a long time before we can replace all the current infrastructure and yeah. So the Internet of Things as it is now, big attack vector for sure.
Yep. Another one that's getting a lot of awareness right now is around cryptography, and whether or not governments should have access and backdoors for encryption for investigation and enforcement purposes. And there's obviously a lot of nuance to this that people that are not aware of the technical issues seem to be able to choose sides very quickly. And I saw an interesting argument from one government official said, there's not a lock anywhere in North America that people wouldn't be able to open for us under a warrant, and that somehow doesn't seem to apply to electronic devices yet, and that's a pretty huge concern for governments and for law enforcement. But the implications of creating those backdoors are massive. Do you want to give your thoughts on the current fight between the FBI and Apple and the growing tension between law enforcement and technology?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that probably thinkers who have thought about it more than I have better answers. But yeah, I mean, as with anything, how do you balance that need for privacy with this desire for security, and in terms of security for nations, for people against certain threat vectors. So, I really don't know what the answer is. I know it is hard to have a backdoor that only once you have a backdoor, it's hard to stop others getting in. And so I think there needs to be some more research done into technical solutions that could work, and I think ultimately it will come down to people's, like, now that people are understanding and becoming more aware of exactly how much access the government can have over their personal information. With Edward Snowden lifting the lid on NSA's activities to a large degree, it'll come down to people's appetite of whether they want their privacy to remain intact or whether they are happy for security services to have the ability to get access to their devices and systems. And only time will tell which side of the line, which way the politics goes on that one.
Yeah, it's certainly not a black and white issue, that's for sure.
Yeah, not at all.
Okay, that's I think a good capture for now. Appreciate your time, Lachlan. Thanks for joining us, and stay safe out there on the world of the internet.
Thanks, Todd.
Okay, take care.